I have been awake for approximately 20 straight hours. Just worked a 12-hour shift. It is my day off. I have coffee. I tried to look presentable. Did not get that done, clearly. And then tried to mess around with the lighting in my room because, for whatever reason, just wasn't taken today, and I still couldn't do a very good job, so I'm relying on natural sunlight. Please, for the love of God, don't judge me. So, I love film. It's my main artistic passion out of all mediums, and frankly, this channel started as a film-centric thing, but as it has evolved, I've kind of had to phase out different styles of content from different people and different series, yada yada yada. But one thing I see a lot of people on this platform doing is talking about the movies that they have seen for the first time in a given period of time. And you know me, I love to yap, so I may as well be a little bit productive with it. I watch a shitload of movies, and for the first time I actually am keeping an active ranked list of all the new movies I'm watching in a given year. I'm on Letterboxd. Follow me if you want to, of course, please. But I just kind of figured I would come on here and talk about it because why not? I have a pretty eclectic taste in film, not to toot my own horn too much, but I feel like I can throw some decent recommendations your way, and by all means, if you've got some good movies that you've seen this year that aren't necessarily new movies, please shout them out in the comments below. I am literally always looking for recommendations, and trust me, my watch list is long. I have no qualms about adding to it. To add a bit of definition to the list that I'm talking about here, these are going to be a list of the films I have watched for the first time this year. So rewatches do not count, movies I have seen multiple times, as well as movies released in 2025. That's going to be something that I'm sure Jen and I and potentially other people might be talking about come the end of the year, but it is a bit past the halfway point of the year, and I meant to have done this much sooner, but alas, time marches forward. So, get cozy. Let's talk about some fucking movies, man. Alright, way we're gonna be doing this, we are going to talk about these films in ascending order. So I'm going to be starting at the bottom of this list, which I have ranked all of these, and I will be going from the bottom to the top. I might mention my rating here and there, not that it really matters all that much. My words are a little bit more important. I would like to think that everyone knows that by now. Ratings in general are just kind of a way to codify your feelings. It's not the end-all be-all. I kind of hate the way that people talk about movies and art online when they're just like, this is a number, this is a number, this is a number. Who fucking cares about numbers? This is art. Fuck math. I am going to be talking about a list of 56 movies that I have watched for the first time this year. And honestly, I'm a bit slacking. I kind of have a busy schedule. I do a lot. I balance a lot of mediums. I balance a lot of different things. So this list is probably a bit shorter than I would like it to be personally. Like my friends, people who've been on this channel before, people like Zach, people like Davey, they have seen way more movies. Like, I'm pretty sure that Davey has seen more new movies this year than I have seen movies in general. Like, that man is a fucking machine. This is what we got so far. And clocking in at number 56, at the dead-ass bottom of my list, and the only thing I have seen this year that I would give a 1 out of 10 to. So the rating is kind of special here. And that goes to an award-winning documentary short film called When We Were Bullies. I heard about this on a podcast that I listened to, and they kind of described what it was in general terms, and then just sort of mentioned that it wasn't that long, and I was like, I gotta check this out, because I am morbidly curious as to what the hell this is, and how exactly it came to garner the attention that it did. So, this documentary short is about a guy, namely in the context of his elementary school class. It's actually about a couple of people from this class, and how they were horrible bullies to this other guy, this other kid in class. And when I say bullies, I don't mean tossing out some mean words, mean nicknames, you know, like stealing his lunch in the cafeteria or something. I mean, like, they poked this dude with sharpened pencils until he bled. Like, genuine psychopath shit. And this whole documentary, in one word, it can be described as cope. This is a bunch of crazy-ass narcissists excusing their own behavior by trying to rationalize it in the context of their own lives. And throughout the course of this documentary, they are in the process of trying to contact the kid that they bullied as adults. And they get in contact with him, and he basically says, fuck off. He's basically like, I don't want anything to do with this. Please do not do this. I don't want this to be in the world. You all terrorized me. Please leave me alone. And it just doesn't deter these people. Like, this would be a fascinating documentary if it was from, like, the guy who made something like Tickled, or a documentary like Mr. Organ, where it kind of specializes in these character portraits of people who are just a bit far gone, and they are involved in, like, these crazy sociological phenomenons that spin outward. Like, it's nothing that broad here, but these people are genuinely sociopathic. They do not see what they did as all that bad, and this guy's refusal to indulge them in this just motivates them further. And the end of this is truly one of the most craven things I have ever seen when it comes to, like, a real life, like, documentary, like, real life filmmaking. In that they go ahead and go through with all of this. Clearly, they finish making it, and they're like, hey, guy who we tormented, we're real sorry about what we did, but, you know, we were all going through a tough time then. Like, me, the main guy, is like, oh, you know, my parents were getting divorced, so I just needed somebody to take it out on, and that just so happened to be you. It was nothing personal. And it's just like, how do you not see that you're pure evil? Like, you're just watching this happen, and it kind of sounds fascinating. Like, the way I'm spinning this makes this sound like it might have some psychological insight. It doesn't. You are just watching shitty people make excuses for being shitty. Like, my brother in Christ, my parents got divorced when I was young. I didn't fucking bully people, like, physically, verbally, in any context. And I'm not saying that because I'm some shining example of human morality. I kind of think that's the case for most people, and you're just kind of searching for something. This whole thing is just, it's so misguided. It's so weird. The tone of it is off. Like, if you had presented this to me as, like, a documentary about, like, cult-like behavior, then it might actually be, like, insightful. There's nothing particularly awful about the way that it's, like, made. It's just kind of standard talking head stuff. But I do find it just kind of morally reprehensible. It is the most worthless thing I have watched this year. And the only compliment I can afford it wasn't feature length. So, stay away, honestly. Like, this isn't even, like, as you will no doubt see, I love me some garbage. Under the right circumstances, with the right people, the right movie, sometimes garbage can be beautiful. This is ugly garbage. Next up, we have the worst feature film that I've watched this year at 55. We have the American remake of Pulse. Now, the original Pulse is a film by Japanese filmmaker Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Kiyoshi Kurosawa is a guy who kind of at the forefront of the J-horror movement. Not exactly as popular as stuff like The Ring, like, probably, in terms of popularity, it's, like, more along the lines of something like Dark Water, I guess. But Kurosawa is one of those guys who, like, he's a real auteur, and frankly, all of his movies are utterly fascinating to watch. Like, they go so much deeper into, like, the sociological condition of what J-horror is about in a way that feels really quintessential. Like, one of his most popular movies is the film Cure, which is another fantastic movie. Really, really great. But Pulse is my favorite of his works. So you could say that I was going into this a bit loaded, but I knew the reputation of most of these American J-horror remakes, like The Grudge. The Ring is kind of an outlier here, just because that was one of the first ones, I think, and the Gore Verbinski Ring movie, I actually really like. Like, I think that's a really solid, really moody, really atmospheric horror movie that, yeah, has a level of kind of American Hollywood filmmaking polish, but frankly, Verbinski's sensibilities as a filmmaker make that movie feel just... There is such palpable dread in that movie, and that's the most important thing about J-horror to me, is just that lingering feeling of gnawing dread that just no other horror subgenre seems to quite understand like this subgenre's best candidates tend to. Pulse being a fantastic example of one that plays it kind of really close to the chest. It's a very, very standard for what you imagine, even though, like, the filmmaking and, like, the writing's really, really smart, but it goes places. Like, the scale of it. Like, Kurosawa was a guy who really prides himself on being kind of unpredictable in a lot of his films, and that's why it's such a shame that this Pulse remake is very literally anything but unpredictable. This thing is just awful. There's kind of a difficult line to ride with J-horror, because sometimes the sort of homespun appeal of it, like, it always kind of looks a little bit intentionally worn and, like, shitty looking, kind of, but, like, on purpose, in a stylistic way. Like, you know, in the same way that the Blair Witch Project uses the found footage, is that, you know, a lot of J-horror uses a kind of very handheld or even, like, filmmaking techniques that don't feel very Hollywood, I guess is how I'm trying to describe it. And this is just trying to capitalize on trend. That's all this is. What makes it so horrible is that, I mean, it takes a really unique horror movie and turns it into the least interesting version of itself. The acting is horrible. Horrible! Universally. And it takes this really universal thing. Like, Pulse is a movie that is just sort of about societal collapse in slow motion that gradually, like, affects people in, like, a way that sort of, like, it's like if depression was contagious. And in many ways, it kind of makes the case for the fact that, on some level, depression is contagious. Like, if there are certain sociological factors in play, it is going to affect a group of people in a particular economic circumstance in a way that just makes this kind of thing inevitable. And that's what adds to the dread of that movie. This is just a movie about stupid teenagers who can't put their fucking cell phones down. And, like, if you watch any of our shit, you know that there's nothing I find more annoying and condescending than in the year of our Lord 2025 consuming art where it's just like, phone bad, screen bad, and it's just like, first of all, yes, I know. Secondly, that is just not a good way to probe a topic. Like, if you say phone bad, screen bad, you know, it's like, you're not technically wrong, but, like, you have to go deeper. Like, why? You have to actually come up with a reason. The only notable thing about this movie that I think keeps it from, like, the true bottom of the barrel, like, half-star kind of movie is that it is funny. Like, if you get together with friends, if you get some substances, and, you know, you enjoy, like, badly acted horror movies as I do, you can have a good time with this. And frankly, my fiance and I had a blast watching this until it became, like, borderline nonsense by the end. Brad Dourif, character actor, Brad Dourif shows up at in like one scene, 75% of the way through this movie for, like, literally 2 shots. Like, they look like they were inserted in post, almost. Like, Chucky himself is in this movie and is like, I'm taking the paycheck and bouncing. Y'all be easy. Yeah, do not watch this movie unless you are heavily aided by very fun people and copious amounts of alcohol and or drugs. Next is a very different kind of bad movie, and I don't know if people are going to get on my ass for this one just because this comes from a particular time where people my age are very nostalgic for these kinds of things, specifically the work of the author of which these movies are based on. And I don't have familiarity with that, so I need you to keep that in mind when I say all of this, but, at 54, third from the bottom here, we have Paper Towns. I watched this purely because my fiance was like, have you seen The Fault in Our Stars and or Paper Towns? And we watched The Fault in Our Stars, like, last year, like, I think towards the end of last year. And I was like, yeah, I don't think this is a good movie. In fact, I think I would call it bad, but it's bad in a couple of interesting ways. Like, it's bad in the respect that, like, I think John and Hank Green are, like, cool dudes. Like, I like, especially, like, Hank, like, they seem like really good guys who want to do good things for the world, and, like, you know, good on them. That said, the way that John Green writes teenagers and teenage dialogue makes me want to shoot myself in the face. I realize that I am an author who heavily deals in writing teenage characters. The difference is, when I started writing my series that heavily features teenage characters, I did so when I was a teenager, and I was like, hey, these are how me and my friends talk. Like, I'm not approximating a time period or a generational gap or anything. It's just like, I'm used to people talking like this, so people are going to talk this way in what I write. Simple as. And so far, nobody has told me that my dialogue sounds like, you know, inauthentic, I guess. You know, buy my books and tell me they're shit, by all means. But, man, the way that this guy writes dialogue and characters is so... I'm not like the other girls. And with The Fault in Our Stars, it's a little bit draped around the fact that, like, there's some good actors in this, and there's some poignant stuff in there. Like, it's not completely, like, vapid or anything. I just don't think it, like, works very well. Paper Towns, on the other hand, this movie is, like, truly... I don't know why this story exists. I don't know why someone would tell this story, and I don't know what meaning you could derive from it. It's like a Zoomer, Zillennial version of Into the Wild, but without the things that make Into the Wild poignant or interesting to look at, I guess. It's just like, what if a girl was fucked up? That would be weird. And it's like, yeah, I get that we're, like, trying to play into stereotypical male fantasies of female archetypes. Like, I understand what the goal is here. But it's like, that's it. That's just kind of like, oh, the bit is that he realizes this girl that he has idealized in his head is actually not that person. It is actually, like, a flawed, grounded human being. And I'm like, okay... I mean, I guess this could work as, like, a Zoomer Great Gatsby kind of deal, but I don't even like The Great Gatsby to begin with. Like, I know literary people are gonna get on my ass. Look, just fucking deride my taste all you want. Paper Towns, I'm just, like, the acting's not particularly good in it either. Like, the writing, like, every moment of this movie just feels incredibly twee and insufferable. And listen, to me, it's quite egregious. One of my favorite movies, still to this day, is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I know how people feel about that movie. Plenty of people find that movie twee and insufferable. And you know what? I understand. But at the same time, I watch a movie like that and I'm like, you know what? Stephen Chbosky knows how kids talk to each other. I knew these people. I understand them. Paper Towns, not so much. Maybe you have to be a little older, maybe you have to be a little younger, but all of this rang as purely hollow and like it was written at a considerable distance. Like, I can only imagine that this story would have been better if John Green had aged up the characters and just actually written it like a normal story for not young adults. Like, it's just baffling to me. I do not get it. Also features some of the worst needle drops. Just like, I felt like I was placed right back into the 2010s, and like, please do not do that to me, ever. I did not give you permission to do that to me. Next up, we have Dragon Ball... What the hell is this called? Dragon Ball Fight Son Goku, Win Son Goku. I watched this purely because it was one thing Dragon Ball related I had never seen before, and it looked really goofy and dumb and bad. And considering I did a video with my friend Luke, where we talked about basically the entirety of Dragon Ball, I just wanted to be able to say something about it. And, you know, go watch that if you want more in-depth, detailed thoughts, but yeah, it's bad. It's bad because it's like a bootleg. It's a Korean Dragon Ball bootleg, essentially. And, like, it is bad. In fact, it's kind of bad in every way something like this can be bad. But it also does show an actual reverence for the source material. Like, they include details and character beats and, like, things that only people who have genuine love for this series would know to include. And so that's kind of what puts it a step above everything here, is that this is enjoyable, like, supremely, like, way more than Pulse. Like, Pulse has stretches that it's just, like, really fucking boring. This, on the other hand, is silly, goofy fun time. You know, crack open a cold one with the boys and put this on the TV. So, next I have a movie where I'm trying to fill in the gaps with a lot of great directors. Like, I've seen plenty of films from plenty of great directors that I really love, and then just, like, so many other films in their oeuvre are just blind spots for me, and I'm trying to make an active effort to sort of fill those in. And one such undertaking was watching James Cameron's debut feature, Piranha 2: The Spawning. An auspicious beginning for debatably the biggest blockbuster auteur on the planet. I mean, yeah, it's bad. It's a bad horror movie, it's a bad horror movie sequel, it's a bad horror movie sequel in a franchise that nobody actually gives that much of a shit about, and it's very clearly a, this is my first movie, I'm getting in and getting out kind of deal. Like, this isn't even bad in an interesting way, it's just bad. If you're wondering why it's not lower on this list, it's because I really only half paid attention to it. I was watching it with friends, and everything that I saw, I was just like, yeah, this isn't good. I can tell, like, even on a technical level, it is a very poorly made film. But it is kind of inoffensive. Like, there is nothing about it that genuinely, like, bothered me. But yeah, it's a skip for me. I'm kind of hot and cold on James Cameron in general, but no, this was a miss. Ooh. Next up, okay, I'll be brief with these, is that currently, I don't know when these videos are going to be released. This should come out first, but myself, Jen, Morgan, and my fiance Rhiannon, we are working on doing a complete tier list of every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and as of today, I have finally seen every movie in the MCU. It did, in fact, take me this long just because I, like many people, I was never hugely invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but, like, once Endgame happened, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, you know, like, I'm just, like, any investment that I did have is just like, whoosh, it's gone. So it's not like I have, like, a huge vested interest in it or anything, but I will elaborate on my thoughts much further on in that video, so go check that out whenever it does come out. But next on the list is Marvel's Eternals. Interesting because I don't know how old this, like, press release or article or whatever it was, but, like, within the last week, I have seen several different, like, Marvel news headlines that have just been talking about the fact that no, none of the characters from Eternals are ever going to show back up into the MCU at any point, and you know what? I don't even need to say anything else. That really says it all for you. I did not care for this. At all. And next, speaking of things I don't care about, is the horror film Tear. Now, I didn't expect anything out of this. My fiance is very into kind of like, tarot readings and like, witchy kind of stuff. So she was like, hey, I know that there's going to be this movie called Tear coming out. It's probably going to suck ass. We should watch it. And that we did. I got astonishingly plastered while watching this, and thus remember very, very little about it, other than it being very stupid. It reminded me of, like, the first Annabelle movie, like, the first one, the really, really cheap, really, really bad one. It's not as cheap looking, it's kind of got that Hollywood glossiness to it, but I mean, like, this is your classic dumb shit teenagers do a bunch of dumb shit things and things go wrong. It's like, this movie is literally just like dog-ass talk to me. Nothing more to it than that. And next is Cry Wolf. Speaking of bad horror movies, we did an entire segment on this film on my show with my friend, fellow Kentuckian Jen. We talked about this movie because it was assigned to me. Go check that video out if you want more thoughts. But this is this movie's really awful. But it is uniquely awful in a way that, like, not everything quite is. It does achieve a level of, like, campy trashiness that I just, like, oh, I live for it. It's, like, very I Know What You Did Last Summer, very post-Scream kind of thing. Like, something that tries to be self-aware and have, like, a real sort of edge to it. And it is kind of a phone screen bad movie, but it's like, it does have some interesting things to say. There's not nothing here. Like, Jen did recommend it to me for a reason. I can't say much more on it, but it is an entertaining time. Bon Jovi is in it. Do with that information whatever you will. Next, this one's not going to make me any friends. This next movie is The Last, Naruto, the movie. Frankly, I think I would be justified if I put this here just for having one of the stupidest titles I've ever seen in my life. I have a complicated relationship with Naruto. To abridge my thoughts substantially, I don't really care for it, particularly the direction that Shippuden goes in. And I kind of tuned in and out. Like, once the Great Ninja War arc, like, began, I was like, I'm done. Miss me with, like, literally all of this. So I picked up bits and pieces over the years, and, like, I absorbed it kind of on the peripheral. But then I, like, watched some of the movies. I went back and did fill in some of the gaps of the show. This was a long time ago. And I remember a specific segment of the show and a specific plot point involving certain characters and a particular romance that this movie is kind of centered around not developing, but codifying, because, man, Kishimoto he does his female characters so dirty. Like, so fucking dirty. I don't just mean Sakura. I mean everybody. The way this story just ends up playing out, like, one day I'm sure Jen and I will get into this. They're a much bigger Naruto head than I am, and I'm sure there's plenty of ink to be spilled about this. Just as a film, it just kind of exists to make sure that a relationship between two characters makes more sense, essentially, and gives it a kind of go save the princess angle, and it is so boring. It is so endemic of everything that I do not like about late era Naruto and all of that shit. Like, it was just deeply disappointing. Even as someone who did not have high expectations, I was just like, maybe this romance thing will be kind of interesting or kind of cute. It's not. It's really not. I could not be paid to give a shit. I know that this is a particularly unpopular opinion that I have. I don't care. Sucks to suck. And, oh, Lord. On a far more grim note, another film that I watched this year was the remake, kinda, mostly, yeah, it is a remake, of All Quiet on the Western Front, which is a remake of a old, very acclaimed war movie. This was a film that got a lot of Oscar attention during Oscar season when it came out. I think it may have even, I think it got nominated for score, maybe it won? I don't remember what else was nominated that year. Brain is hazy. Regardless, this is a movie that I think is really well made, really well acted. Like, from a technical standpoint, this is far and away the best thing I have mentioned here thus far. Like, I can see why that it was nominated for stuff. The problem is that as like a film, as a story, with characters, with themes, total flatline. Like, if the point of the movie is really to just be like, hey, this is what World War I was like in the trenches, and it's a really good simulation of that. It's like, this is how horrible it was to be involved in this conflict. And you see these characters kind of go through this gradual loss of innocence and stuff. And, you know, it sounds compelling on paper. The problem is I've seen a lot of war movies in my day, and a lot of them just do this a whole lot better. I know that it's not particularly cool of an opinion to have, but there's movies like 1917, which I think just do this in a way more compelling fashion. This is just a movie where it's sort of like it's hitting you with, you know, the horrors of war over and over and over and over again, and it just starts to feel kind of blunt. The characters aren't super defined, and the story itself is, well, it's history playing out, and the dramatization of it is marginally compelling, but I could never escape the fact that this movie is so long, so turgid, and look, hey, maybe that's part of the experience, maybe that's part of the effect. It ended up diminishing the potency of the film to me. Like, I was just unable to feel what it was putting on the table at some point. So it was a bit of a miss with me, unfortunately. I would still recommend, you know, if you're into this kind of movie, you may check it out and enjoy it a lot more than me. The one thing, ironically, that I did not care for, like, at all about this, where I just totally indefensible by my own standards, is in fact the score. I think the score is like this low, droning, monotonous, repetitive. It's just very devoid of personality. There's just nothing interesting about it, and it just keeps using the same kind of motifs and beats in the music over and over again, and it just doesn't help the repetition. It's like, this isn't dynamic, this isn't interesting, I'm not really sure why this sounds this way. And next, and we're moving into the portion of this list where the movies are less actively bad and more generally mediocre at this point. The herald of generally mediocre, this is the remake of Speak No Evil, the James McAvoy horror vehicle. Do you know what's a good movie? Michelle Haneke's Funny Games. Both of them. They're good movies. You should watch those. Next on the list is Barbie Mermaidia. Now, listen. If you have a special someone in your life, it's only fair that if you share media that you love with them, that you allow that to be reciprocated, and you check out stuff that they love too. One thing my fiance absolutely loved growing up were all of the Barbie movies. And, you know, there is something to these movies that is so quintessentially just the home video, you know, mid to late 2000s Disney Channel original kind of vibe that these have, that is kind of comfortably nostalgic, that, like, I do actually get kind of a warm feeling from watching them. That said, a lot of these 3D animated Barbie movies, they are ugly. They are ugly. Budget of a ham sandwich. And there's nothing, like, super compelling about them. I mean, they're Barbie movies. I'm an adult person. I am obviously not the demographic. but it is very uninvolving, but also kinda charming. Like, they're again, these movies have something to them. I'm just not really the person to tell you what that something is. So, it was a fun enough little time. There's a little guy named Bibble, and he makes little silly sounds. Also, there's like mushrooms in this movie, and they kind of feel racist. Like, the mushrooms themselves do not enact the racism. They themselves appear as though they are some kind of racial caricature for a race of people that does not exist. At least to my knowledge. So, there's that. Next up, another Marvel movie. This is The Marvels. Everybody's favorite, The Marvels. A movie that you definitely remember coming out, and that people certainly saw. Again, I won't go too deep into this, but honestly, considering how hard this tanked and how critically savaged it got, part of me wants to say that this film was a little bit overhated. Like, it's got a lot of problems, but there was never a moment where I was like, I'm not enjoying myself. I'm not having a good time, but I'm also not really having a bad one either. It's got moments. More to come. This is the point in the list where I can actually say that these movies are good. Like, going forward, these are movies that I would give like a 6 out of 10 to, is what I consider getting over the line of mediocrity into this movie has several qualities about it that make it worthwhile, make it worth watching. And first on this over the finish line part of the list is Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. Now, this movie's kind of become notorious online because of the lead performance by one Mr. Nicolas Cage. This is a very odd movie. It's directed by Werner Herzog, who is kind of a super acclaimed, long-time documentary and narrative feature filmmaker who, I mean, has made more movies than Stephen King has written books. I mean, this dude, like, he can't sneeze without making a fucking movie. And he's a really interesting filmmaker, a really interesting guy. You've probably seen the video clip of him being interviewed and being shot while he is interviewed, and he's like, oh, anyway. Werner Herzog's movies can often be a certain degree of unhinged in a way that is very compelling. And when you combine that with Nicolas Cage, it's kind of a powder keg for bat-shittery. And there is plenty of bat-shittery. This movie is deceptively insane. But the problem is that it's just not quite deceptively insane enough. When Cage really gets to just do his thing and be an insane, corrupt cop, it's awesome, as expected. The rest of the movie around him, though, even formally sometimes, is very standard. And I'm not even judging this as a sequel, because technically speaking, it, like, kind of is. I don't know why it's called Bad Lieutenant, because it's a reference to the Abel Ferrara movie Bad Lieutenant, starring Harvey Keitel. One of my personal favorite movies of all time. An actual perfect, very, very fascinating character study. This is nothing like it. It is not a remake, really. It's not a sequel. It has to do with a corrupt cop in a specifically interesting environment. It's like a post-Hurricane Katrina kind of thing. And, yeah, it's got its moments, but it is very conventional. And it would have been better if it had just been completely off its rocker. But definitely still worth watching, especially with friends, because, yeah, those Nick Cage moments, he does a lot of drugs, there are lizards. It's cool. Next is Sailor Moon. I don't really think this movie technically has, like, an official English title. It's just kind of credited as Pretty Guardian, Sailor Moon, Cosmos the Movie, Part 1. Part 2 of this is out. I just have not seen it yet, but basically this is the, like, newer adaptation of the Sailor Moon manga that is, like, it started off with Sailor Moon Crystal, and then, like, the show sort of rebooted it, like, its seasons as each sort of arc of the show. And this movie is one of the arcs, half at least, one of the newer arcs in the chronology of Sailor Moon. And I'm not like a huge Sailor Moon fan or anything. Again, this is one I did watch because of my fiance, but I do like these overridingly just because I think that they are really interesting and they have some moments where things get a little reflexive writing-wise, and sometimes things get really fucking dark and weird, and it's interesting. And this movie is good. It's just, the problem with basically every arc of Sailor Moon is kind of that it's the exact same story every single time of there's a team of bad people who's led by one specific bad person at the top of the bad person food chain, and then they encounter each other, the Sailor Guardians do, and then there's like a couple of people who are like, who are these characters? And like, they're kind of mysterious, and are they antagonists? And no, they're actually going to join the main faction. It's like, it's the Dragon Ball problem, where basically all of the same beats keep happening. It's like, it's not a, oh, it's like poetry, it rhymes. It's like, no, these are the same beats over and over again. And really, it's more about just, like, what characters are, like, the most interesting. It's why the best arc of Sailor Moon is the one involving, like, the backstory of Chibiusa. In my opinion, anyway. I think that's the best arc. And this one's solid. I actually think I prefer it to the arc that comes before it, but I have not seen how it plays out, though I think I have an idea of how it ends. But it's some good stuff. The animation has been cleaned up because when Sailor Moon Crystals like first came out, the animation for television was not polished, it was rushed, so it looked really bad. But this is just kind of common practice with anime nowadays, is when they do the Blu-ray releases and when they put the versions of it on streaming, it has finely touched up animation, so, you know, it doesn't look grody or awful or anything. Like, the budget actually shines through pretty nicely here. But yeah, it's a good time. If Sailor Moon is your thing, or even if you're like vaguely into, you know, like Dragon Ball stuff, Tokusatsu stuff, this might be your bag. Next up, another film de un James Cameron, The Abyss. This is just one of those movies of his that I had never seen before, and it's interesting. It's a good time. It's kind of an amalgam of all of James Cameron's other movies. Like, there are beats from Titanic, there are beats from Aliens, there are beats from Avatar, and you kind of feel like this is the origin point to some degree. I like the cast. They're a lot of fun. The practical effects work, naturally, is insane. Crazy cool looking, crazy good. The alien design is interesting. Like, it's not something that's like forwardly, nothing about it is super unique, but everything about it is really well done. The only thing notable I really have to say about it is that there is a point in this movie where the aliens have to communicate with the human characters, and this movie that is very, very unsubtly about James Cameron getting a divorce, and like the movie is about divorce. The alien just writes wife like in English letters for them to communicate with, and I lost my fucking mind. Like, I like, my rib cage felt like it was going to cave in. I laughed so hard. Eternal wife guy James Cameron, praise be unto him. Next is an interesting choice, is As Above, So Below, a found footage horror movie that, frankly, I had been hearing things about since I was in, like, high school, I think when it came out, maybe, but, like, it, like, did really well, and for some reason has, like, a cultural cachet, and I was, like, interested in it, and Rhiannon one night was just like, hey, we should watch this, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And honestly, like, I'm somebody who really wants to love found footage shit more than I do. Blair Witch Project, for example. Really good, really influential, fascinating movie. I can turn it on right now, I can have a good time with it, I can appreciate all the things about it that are kind of divorced from the cultural conversation around it now. But it's not a movie where I, like, feel it, you know, in my gut, where it's just like the terror that some people had when they actually saw this, and that line between reality and cinema was kind of blurred by this burgeoning movement. It's something I can't really relate to anymore. So That said, I still like the principle of found footage, and I like the idea of it. I think it's ripe for exploration, and there's nothing necessarily that this movie does super differently or, like, innovatively. I just think that the horror within it is really, like, its beats are very creative. Its images are really interesting. It does a kind of approach where it's very, like, it's a bit overwritten at some point. Like, you kind of like, okay, I get what's going on here. We don't need to have the characters explaining this to me. Essentially, it's kind of a Silent Hill-y thing where it's like, oh, the characters' guilt complexes and the things that are, you know, in their past are coming out to haunt them in this, you know, underground, like, tunnel system. But the way it's shot actually does really add a nice sense of claustrophobia to everything. It reminded me a lot of how the camera work in a horror film like The Descent works, except the found footage angle actually does kind of enhance it a little bit. Like, the characters aren't going to, you know, blow your mind or anything, and the story doesn't go anything that's, like, super interesting, but, like, if you just want a decently well-executed version of the solid tenets of found footage, I think this is a good time. Like, I would say that it's, like, as good as the Blair Witch Project. Not as elegant, not as, like, a fully formed of a vision, obviously, but, like, in terms of how much I enjoy it, it's about the same. Next up is another movie I watched with some friends. This is Equilibrium, the Christian Bale action vehicle, notably the pioneer of gun kata, the karate style with guns. This is kind of a riff on, like, dystopic sci-fi stuff. Like, it's very Fahrenheit 451, it's very Brave New World, but in, like, in a cinematic sense, it's very Matrix. It's, like, super, everybody's got long leather coats and is doing cool kung fu shit, and it's insanely silly. Very fun. Like, there's just so many images in this movie. Like, there's this part where Christian Bale, like, they have to, you know, destroy art in this universe because, you know, art makes you feel things, and they set the Mona Lisa on fire. The actual, in the context of this universe anyway, the Mona Lisa. And it's like, man, sure, okay, it's a good time. I highly recommend watching it with friends. Next up is a newer horror film, Smile 2. I kind of tepidly enjoyed the first Smile movie. I know that there's kind of like an oversaturation of, like, trauma horror, and Smile is very much like the bare bones version, realization, manifestation of this concept, and I can understand being tired with it. I just found the actual horror within it to be kind of brutal. Like, these movies are mean-spirited fucking movies. And I can understand how that can even be off-putting, but, like, it does some weird, like, Raimi-esque gonzo shit that I was just like, okay, that's creative, that's cool. Like, I was never really into what the plot was doing. I was really more into just the more atmospheric stuff, the horror itself, the performances I thought were really good. Like, Sosie Bacon is in that first one, and she's real good. And Smile 2, if I had to succinctly summarize it, it's that the things that I like about this movie, I liked even more than the stuff that I liked in the first one, and the stuff that I didn't like, I disliked more. So I like them both overall. But, like, Smile 2's problem is that its screenplay, like, its script, is just, it's kind of running around in circles, and frankly, its desire to explain itself just, it's kind of stupid. It's like, it's a really kind of head-empty thing going on here, but there is an angle with the sort of pop star thing going on with Smile 2, where, like, there's even a direct homage to Perfect Blue, which is one of my, like, 10 favorite movies ever. And there is something to that angle, and there is some horror in this that's genuinely, like, I'm referencing Japanese horror because it does take a lot from it. Like, there's one scene in it where I was just like, this is a Junji Ito set piece in it, and it's really good. It's kind of, the ideal way to consume it is just to watch all of the scary scenes. The connective tissue is okay, and I like the lead performance. Like, I wasn't really sure how I felt about Naomi Scott and in it because she kind of just seemed like she was way too, I don't know, I couldn't get on the wavelength of her performance at first. I thought it was kind of clumsy, but she really plays into the whole neurotic, I'm losing my mind kind of thing, and like by the middle of the second act, I was like, okay, I'm on board. This is cool. And also the practical effects for the monster in these is just like fucking rad cool. It also has an ending that you know how this movie's gonna end. Like, these movies are mean, they don't take the foot off the brakes. It's about a pop star, and then it's about like a thing where the fear is like transmitted through seeing somebody doing something horrible to themselves. You can see where this goes. And yeah, predictable, but also I gotta applaud a movie with the audacity to go there, because that's fucking crazy. Next up on this list is a film, an independent movie that I guarantee most people have not seen. This is a film called Dear Lemon Lima. The only reason I know this movie exists and watched it is because it stars Shane Topp. Shane Topp is a guy who used to be on the Disney Channel and later got a gig with the comedy show The Goldbergs, but primarily is one of the main guys in Smosh. Yes, that Smosh. Ian and Anthony YouTube Smosh, which has kind of undergone a weird content renaissance in the last couple of years where they've reformed and hired a bunch of really interesting, talented comedians to all work together, and my fiance and I frequently enjoy watching Smosh and their content, like Try Not to Laugh. We have every Saturday we watch the new Reddit Stories episode. It's cute. It's fun, and we know because Shane has referenced the fact that he was in this movie. He won like a Critics' Choice Award or something for his performance in it. And we were always just curious and was like, oh, hey, this is free to watch on YouTube since we have YouTube Premium. So let's, what is this? Let's check this out. And this movie is fucking bizarre. It's got that kind of indie movie, mid-2000s, like Little Miss Sunshine quality to it, where it's like, it feels a little bit more adult than its, like, exterior projects. And it has lots of themes about, like, multiculturalism and, like, the native indigenous population of Alaska. Weird stuff. It's like a coming-of-age story. And it's about this girl who gets dumped, and Shane Topp is the character who does the dumping. And he basically plays middle school Patrick Bateman. He's pure fucking evil in this movie, and it's kind of hysterical. This movie takes some big fucking swings. I won't say what or how. I don't think they land, but at the same time, I'm like, this is so much more interesting of a movie than I expected it to be, and so much of it does work enough so that I'm like, okay, I can get on this movie's wavelength, even if I don't think it does necessarily everything that it's trying to do 100% of the time super well, but I respect the gumption. I laughed a lot. We both did. I enjoyed it. It's just, wow, what a tonally bizarre film. I guess I'd call it a dark comedy? In some respect, it's very indie movie, kind of, not really mumblecore, but like, you know, it's orbiting it. Next up is the semi-recent horror movie Cuckoo, the Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens vehicle. Now, this movie didn't get like super great reception or anything, but mostly got pull because Hunter Schafer is in a horror movie and Dan Stevens is being evil in it. And I can't say that this movie is legitimately like great at anything, but it's got incredible vibes. Like, it's got an atmosphere to it, and it also has, like, a quality where, like, it really reminded me of Silent Hill 3. Hunter Schafer is basically playing Heather Mason, and Dan Stevens is basically playing, Vincent, I think his name is. There is kind of a Silent Hill-y quality to this. It's a bit more, like, gonzo and, like, thrillery and weird. And I don't think that the drama, the characters, there's not a lot there. But the more textural, like, horror stuff, Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's weird, it's off the wall, it has some memorable moments in it. I don't think you will walk away disappointed if you go into this with measured expectations. It's an interesting movie, if nothing else. Next is a movie I won't really talk about all that much, just because the first episode of my show with Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray, is us talking about Sinners, the new Ryan Coogler film, as well as a black vampire cinema classic, Ganja and Hess. And we go into way more detail there. Ganja and Hess is a really idiosyncratic movie. It's an older movie, and its production is kinda rough. Like, I'm pretty sure that there's, like, a cut of the movie that exists that's a little bit more, like, it's as intended by the original director, but as a result, it feels a little bit, the editing's kind of slapdash in it. However, there is a really fascinating movie at this film's core. Again, go check out what we had to say about it, but I would really highly recommend giving this a shot if you are interested in just any of the things within this world. It's a very ambitious and very ahead of its time movie that I feel like can be appreciated for a lot of reasons that you would appreciate a film like Sinners, for instance. Like, go back and give this a shot. Just, again, go in knowing that it's, like, the pacing, the editing, it's gonna be a little weird. You're gonna have to get used to its specific rhythm, its specific tempo. Next after that is a newer animated film from Chris Sanders, The Wild Robot. Chris Sanders is a dude who you probably know as the mind behind movies like Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon, which both got remakes this year, Kill Me Now. But this is his new movie. I'm a huge fan of Lilo and Stitch. That's one of my, like, favorite Disney movies. Probably one of my favorite movies in general. And so I was like, yeah, I like Sanders. Let's go and watch this. I know Lupita Nyong'o is in it, and I will watch her in absolutely anything because she's fantastic. Yeah, this is a cute little family movie. Lot of unexpectedly kind of dark and cynical humor is within it, which I think grounds it in a way that makes it a bit easier to take seriously. It's a very tried and true formula, but it works. The animation's really nice, and, you know, it's charming. It's a very good time. I wouldn't necessarily expect anything new, but frankly, I enjoyed this a fair bit more than I did, like, the last couple Pixar joints that I saw, Soul notwithstanding. It's good fun time. Next after this, I won't dwell on this very long, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This movie is more ambitious than its previous film, which is very impressive considering the massive undertaking it must have been after losing Chadwick Boseman. It results in a movie that's undoubtedly a little bit clumsier on its feet. That said, I appreciate the ambition, I appreciate the swings it takes, and I ended up really enjoying this. This is honestly, like, in the upper echelon of the MCU for me, even though I know it does have its own issues, and it is kind of a retread of the last movie, but listen, Ryan Coogler knows what he's doing, and if my cynical ass still manages to, like, genuinely cry at one of these, it's doing something right. And I get it, there are extenuating circumstances, but there is kind of a palpable air of grief in this movie where there are scenes where some characters get to talk about T'Challa, Black Panther, and it's like, am I listening to characters talk about another person in the universe, or am I listening to actors talk about somebody they actually knew? Like, it's heavy in parts, and I appreciate that. Cool villain, better action than the first. Just generally, it's messier, but I love mess. What can I say? The next film on this list is another Werner Herzog film, the guy who did Bad Lieutenant. But this one I do enjoy a fair bit more. This is called My Son, What Have Ye Done? And I said about Bad Lieutenant that movie would have really benefited if it was unhinged all the time rather than sometimes. This movie is unhinged the entire way through. This is a film that gets a conglomerate of legitimately very serious, very good dramatic actors. I mean, I'm talking Brad Dourif, Michael Shannon, Willem Dafoe, Chloe Sevigny, Michael Pena, Udo fucking Kier is in this goddamn movie. And what follows feels kind of like a stage play, but it's like, structurally, I have truly never seen a movie quite like this before. It is about a man who gets in a standoff with the police because he's got a hostage, and he's basically communicating, and the whole movie is about like what led him to that point and what they do afterwards. Nobody in this movie talks like a human being. All of the dialogue is stilted, frequently hysterical, and like all of it's definitely on purpose. The effect it has, like, there is something truly poignant in this movie. Like, I genuinely think that this could be like a legitimate cultural document about American masculinity. It's also kind of nonsense. There is no guarantee how you will react to this movie. You could find it hysterical and insanely entertaining. You could find it confusing and boring. Either way, I think you owe it to yourself to check this out, because I guarantee you, if nothing else, it will make you laugh at some point, because it is fucking absurd. Michael Shannon in this? Mwah. Unbelievably great performance. Hell, other than Take Shelter, this is probably my favorite Michael Shannon performance, and I really like that dude. Next is actually a short film, a comic book related thing that I can talk about. This is a Batman animated fan film called Batman Broken Promise. It's 15 minutes, it's made by like mostly one dude's animation studio, and I gotta say, this is really impressive. And not even impressive like for a fan thing, it's like, oh no, this is like, work was put in here. Like, it's very good. Like, there is a stiltedness to it, but it's in keeping with the style of the animation. The real strong thing here, though, is the way in which this is colored is so, like, it captures being of a comic book, or actually specifically it feels like a graphic novel brought to life, like The Long Halloween or something. And its images, outstanding. Like, truly great, expressive, interesting artwork. And just versions of characters that you've seen before or haven't seen before that are interesting. The sort of ventriloquist dummy character Scarface is a kind of lesser-known, lower-tier Batman villain. I love what they do with him in this. It's really, really, really great. Also, Two-Face, love what they do here. This is a little bit of a socially conscious Batman, and I know that that might sound like kind of like roll your eyes, kind of groan-worthy. I think it's really smart in how it does it. I think that it does it in a way that, like, the Batman does it, where it feels really synergistic with, like, what it's going for. But it creates an interesting Gotham, and it's very cool visually. I've watched it, like, a couple of times at this point, just because it's short, it's like 15 minutes, but it's substantial. It's a complete story. It's a complete arc. I think they did a really good job with it. Oh man, my throat hurts. I really fucking... and I gotta record with Jen later. Fuck. Okay, this is the point in the list when movies start going from, like, good, very good movies to legitimately great. This is when movies are proper fucking cinema. If you catch my drift. Next movie is a French film, one of the older movies on this list, 1955. This is Diabolique, which notably is one of the movies that inspired Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. And a couple other, like, Hitchcock joints. You can kind of see the DNA of this in a lot of modern thrillers. And while I will say that the filmmaking in pockets is a bit dry, you know, again, this is a movie from the 50s, it's really good. Like, this is a really riveting, really beautifully shot, incredibly well-performed little mystery about these two women who plan the murder of one of their, like, abusive husbands, and them trying to, like, hide the body and then subsequently, like, benefit off of his death, but, like, there's something wrong with it. It's like they hide the body and the body mysteriously just disappears. and then it kind of spirals out of control. And it's a really taut, satisfying mystery, and the ending almost becomes a little bit disappointing. And then, like, literally the last, like, literal 10 seconds of the film has a final grace note that I just thought was, mwah, perfect. Amazing way to end it that kind of made up for the fact that it was like, oh, that's where they're going. Interesting. There is a part of me that is always going to prefer a portion of a movie where it is not answering the central mystery, because if you leave it up to interpretation, then the mystery is just more interesting. If you give me a definitive conclusion, then, you know, my mind wanders less. It provokes the imagination a little bit less. Can't help it. But still, great movie. I would highly recommend it for people who are, you know, looking to watch some older stuff, or are just generally fans of Hitchcock, or want to see one of the, like, progenitor thrillers. Next, we have Kotoko, which is a film by filmmaker Shinya Tsukamoto. Shinya Tsukamoto is a guy who's, like, really big in sort of, like, Japanese underground, like, indie cinema, kinda. Most notably for being responsible for the trilogy of films, the Tetsuo trilogy. Tetsuo the Iron Man being the first one and most famous. Again, one of my favorite films. 5 stars. Perfect movie. Crazy-ass movie. I would kind of put that into the category of, like, if you really like the homespun, indie, kind of rough-shot vibe of Evil Dead 1 and 2, then you will love something like Tetsuo. If I had watched that in high school, I would probably have loved it even more, for example. Kotoko is a movie that is by him way more recent. It's actually from 2011. I didn't even know he was still making movies until this year. This is a very good movie that I can recommend to absolutely no one with confidence. That's not to say that I don't think people will enjoy it, but oh man, is this movie abrasive. This movie is about a woman who suffers from a psychological condition where every time she sees someone, she will see them coming after her as like a copy of them, but they aren't real. So her perception is that, like, she is literally constantly about to be assaulted, but it's all in her head, and she is a single mother taking care of her baby. And this movie is, in a phrase, nerve-wracking. The sound design, the camera work, it is antagonistic. This is a movie that is made for people who listen to 3-hour-long industrial post-rock albums. Me. It is very unpleasant. At points, incredibly graphic. Like, there is something that happens in this movie where I was like, wow, I'm genuinely astonished that a horror movie went there. Like, truly, I was like, that is bold. I kind of respect it. It is very effective. It's kind of like if Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, like, punched you in the face every 5 minutes. Very difficult to recommend, but nonetheless, it was a very poignant viewing experience for me, I guess. Next is a Western classic. We have My Darling Clementine, which is notably a film by esteemed American filmmaker John Ford, and this is one of the Westerns that revolves around characters like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. For those who don't know, the two sort of main guys in... Why can't I remember it? It's one of my favorite movies. Tombstone! Westerns like Tombstone, and I sort of watched this because, you know, in memoriam of Val Kilmer, who played Doc Holliday in that movie, but we wanted to watch the other movies that were sort of in this sort of double billet, I guess, with characters who we got to see different incarnations of. And this is I wouldn't say that it's a traditional Western, but it is a story about just sort of small town corruption and its versions of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday are very different from what we know them as, and very different from the ones in Tombstone. Like, Doc Holliday is, like, almost overtly kind of a bad guy in this. It's really strong. It's a really good movie, and it's, like, way more compelling than a black and white Western from the 40s that you would imagine would be. Because just, you know, you think about a movie that old, you'd be like, I don't really imagine myself being really all that swept up. And it's like, no, this is one of the great American filmmakers doing what he does best in a relatively smaller scale story than something like, you know, Stagecoach, for example. But yeah, this was really solid. It was actually my introduction to John Ford's work. I highly enjoyed it, and honestly, I need to give it another rewatch and just watch more John Ford in general. After that, we have Shin Ultraman, directed by Shinji Higuchi, and I don't know much about Ultraman or like tokusatsu. I know about these things through cultural osmosis and because a lot of my friends are into this kind of stuff. This is a really fun movie. Like a really fun movie, mainly, and I know that this sounds very film nerdy, but like mainly because of the cinematography. There is no such thing as shot reverse shot in this movie. Every single shot is a completely new shot setup, and it is always from a weird fucking perspective. It's like, here's the camera, now here's the camera, and here's the camera, here's the camera, here's the camera, here's the camera with a different lens, here. The coverage is crazy. The edit on this thing is so tight, though, that it doesn't really matter. It's not disorienting somehow. The action, lots of clarity, lots of fun, very cheesy. Again, if you know what to expect from Ultraman, I can't imagine that this is too far off the mark, but I had an absolute ball with this. On the complete other side of the spectrum, after this, we have Picnic at Hanging Rock. This movie's, like, kind of impossible to describe. It's a very slow burn mystery that I would describe as being, like, kind of a Western-tinged version of the Virgin Suicides. It's... hell, I would almost say that this is like a Lovecraftian horror movie in a very strange way. Like, it's not a scary movie, but it's basically about these school of girls who go out and basically a bunch of them go missing, and nobody really knows how or why, and they're trying to, like, piece back the bits of the mystery and, like, go over everything. And really, this is a movie about atmosphere. This is a movie about mystery, and then it becomes something different by the third act. I'm trying to be intentionally vague here because there's not a lot to spoil in it, but the in the moment, just like sitting and watching the movie is very hypnotic. It's very slow, but there's a lot of involving drama and a lot of interesting things that I think this has to say about womanhood and colonialism and just lots of really interesting thematic stuff here. But like, there is a moment in this that scared me as much as any horror movie proper has, and it's just an expression on a character's face. And it just kind of holds it for a moment. And the implication of this one expression is bone-chilling. Like, really effective stuff, really interesting. Not for everyone. Be prepared for a slow burn, but it is a beautiful, interesting, really enigmatic movie. Next, we have Billy Wilder's Witness for the Prosecution. Billy Wilder's a dude I've been trying to actively seek out more movies from, just because The Apartment is one of my favorite movies of all time, really. And I've always just, like, he's such a great writer and is known as one of the, like, you know, the screenplay auteurs of old Hollywood, so I was like, I need to watch more of his shit. And Witness for the Prosecution is just an impeccable courtroom drama thriller thing. Again, if you really like Hitchcock and like procedurals and stuff, this is right up your alley. This has some twists and turns in it that not only do you not predict, the movie goes out of its way to kind of intentionally hoodwink you in some really clever ways some really interesting kind of subversive ways. I feel like you could write a paper on how fucking clever this fucking movie is. And the characters are just fun. Like, the lead guy is like this crotchety old lawyer, and I've got an affinity for, like, crotchety old characters who are, like, really good at what they do. Like, there's just something inherently kind of compelling about that to me. And this is just, like, my fucking bread and butter. Like, if you're somebody who goes gonzo for, like, 12 Angry Men and shit, or, like, again, you like shit like Rear Window or Vertigo, yeah, this is gonna be an easy sell for you. Very, very different, changing gears here again, is that I have Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Yes, that is the title. Yes, it's stupid. This was for our Dragon Ball video. Go watch that. I do talk about it there. But this is quite definitively my favorite Dragon Ball movie. Not a high bar, admittedly, because of the 20 or so Dragon Ball movies, not a lot of them are really that good. That said, this is a lot of fun. Losing Akira Toriyama, it was an inevitability, but this, to me, is the only movie that I feel like truly captures Toriyama's spirit, ethos. The comedy in this is very Toriyama. This is the funniest Dragon Ball movie by, like, a mile. It's mostly about Piccolo, kind of focusing on plot threads and ideas that, like, I feel like the more tepid reception to this was because fans of Z watched it and were like, I don't want to see fucking a story about Piccolo babysitting fucking Gohan's kid. Like, why would I? Why? Me, on the other hand, I love Piccolo, and I love Gohan, and I love, not Videl. I keep wanting to call her Videl. It's Pan. But I love this version of it. The animation is spectacular, and it's just a fun superhero movie. It's a very, very fun ride. And I feel like it's one of those instances where, yeah, the stakes aren't enormous, but it makes the character drama and character beats way more interesting and cool. The dub is also absolutely exceptional. Chris Sabat, God, king of my heart. Next is another John Ford Western, and this one I liked even more than My Darling Clementine. This is The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Very notable by having two sort of old Hollywood titans in the leads as John Wayne v. Jimmy Stewart, two actors who are positively titanic in this. The back and forth here, the sort of morality of the small town and the kind of, like, politics of how this is playing out and, like, kind of what it says about the greater Western genre. Like, this is a movie that I like loved, and I'm still almost 100% certain that I'm probably underrating it. There's a lot of amazing performance work here. John Wayne says pilgrim so many times that if you took a shot every time he said it, you would die of alcohol poisoning. Guaranteed. But yeah, this is just powerhouse performance work. Some incredible fucking blocking and camera shit, like black and white cinematography, absolutely to die for. This is just a Western that checks every box, you know, like when you picture what you want out of these in your head, that's not like specifically a spaghetti Western kind of Sergio Leone alike kind of thing, this is what I look for. Exactly. And speaking of old Hollywood, next on my list, yes, I did watch this for the first time, and I am 27, and I did graduate from film school, and I only just saw Casablanca. In my defense, I've owned it for years, I just never got around to it, and yeah, what can I say, man? This movie's great. This is a quintessential perfect screenplay. Great anti-fascist cinema, which, you know, you can never be too short on these days. I think the most incredible thing about this movie, other than the fact that it has such a great sense of place, is just Bogart and Bergman in this are on fucking fire. Two of the best lead performances, not in classic cinema, in cinema in general. The fact that this came out in 42 is crazy. Crazy shit. Another movie I might even be underrating, I think that it was really just more of, I loved the setting of Casablanca so much, and the dialogue is so just fucking like snappy and quicky. I kind of wanted more. I wanted to be in this environment for more. I wanted to learn more about the characters, but the screenplay, again, is so mechanical and goes so fucking, like, has so much momentum. Yeah, it's one of the greats for a reason, absolutely. And we're keeping it old school, but we're switching continents here, because after that we have a movie that's certainly less old, but it is still black and white, and it is from the 60s, but this is Akira Kurosawa's High and Low. Spike Lee, director extraordinaire, is coming out with a kind of remake of High and Low, Highest to Lowest, starring Denzel Washington, out right now. Pretty sure First Watch Podcast is going to talk about that by the time this video is out, so go tune into that if you haven't. I am woefully undereducated with Akira Kurosawa, despite the fact that he directed Dreams, which is one of my favorite movies ever, so I need to watch more of his shit, because if there's one thing that a fucking Akira Kurosawa is going to do, it's make a nice, handsome looking fucking movie, and High and Low is definitely that. This is a near 2.5 hour long movie that, while I will say does drag a little bit for me personally in spots, oh man, the first half and the final stretch of this movie, absolutely riveting. This camera work, the blocking in this, should be, and by all accounts is, studied as the peak of the form. There are some shots in this where you're just like, dude, I don't know how you'd get that fucking shot today. Let the fuck alone 60 goddamn years ago. This movie is also frequently cited as kind of an original text for movies these days, like Parasite, for instance. Like, Bong Joon-ho was definitely very inspired by High and Low. It's a sort of kidnapping thriller about this sort of CEO of a shoe company who has a very high-stakes investment in his business, and his son is kidnapped and held for ransom that will basically make him go broke. And there's a lot to say about class politics in this, and, you know, just sort of wealth, the idea of, police and stuff. Like, really smart, really good shit. But mainly it is anchored by the fact that Toshiro Mifune, who is just the guy when it comes to Akira Kurosawa's films, like, he is just, the John Wayne of a different continent. And God, he's fucking good in this. Everybody's fucking good in this. There is a portion of this where it becomes a little less character-centric, that it's a little, again, it's a little dry, and it is on the older side, but the filmmaking is so consistently fucking exciting. I can't imagine somebody holding it against this too bad. Like, I loved this, like, a lot, and I'm still, like, the person of my friend group that likes it the least. So go into this and, prepare for a longer movie, but it's a fucking ride. Specifically, that first half and the train sequence is just some of the best filmmaking you will ever see, point blank, period. The sunglasses shot? Bro. Still keeping it old school a little bit. After that, we have the John Frankenheimer film from 1966, Seconds. I had a Criterion of this that I, had held on to forever and have just been waiting for the right day to watch this, and one day I popped it in recently, and wow. Talk about ahead of its fucking time. I mentioned this with Shin Ultraman, is that's a movie where it literally feels like they just put a camera goddamn anywhere. This movie actually has that quality too, except, again, it's in 1966, and the way this looks, this is maybe my favorite looking movie of the entire 1960s, at least from what I've seen, which is still a fair bit, I would say. But, like, just the way this looks, the different lenses that are used here, the different techniques, the camera work, it's stunning. Basically, this is a movie that is about, it's kind of like an episode of The Twilight Zone, if I had to put it succinctly. It's about a guy who's getting older, having a bit of a midlife crisis. He's kind of in a loveless marriage, working a kind of Kafka-esque sort of corporate job, and this sort of agency, this mysterious sort of bureau or whatever, basically allows him to start over. It, like, you know, turns his face into a younger dude, and he is played by, what's his name? Goddamn, Rock Hudson. Very well by Rock Hudson as well. And it's really a psychological thriller that is just about the concept of identity and, you know, in the 60s and the economic fallout, post-war, yada, yada, yada. You can kind of see where I'm going here. This is, again, another movie that I'm probably underrating just a little bit, but it is alarming how prescient so much of this feels. Like, there is a certain ennui that this captures that feels like we've hit the point of the 50-year cycle where we're like, the pendulum is swinging backwards and suddenly this movie's gonna feel very relevant again. There are parts of it that are legitimately bone-chilling. Like, it's definitely more of a mystery psychological thriller, but by the end, there is some shit that is straight up upsetting. Great film. Highly recommend. And you know, in this sort of top 20 part here, this is where we're getting to the really, really good shit. Like, this is stuff that I will rate very, very highly. We're going to another Billy Wilder movie, which is Some Like It Hot. This is one of the funniest comedies that probably came out in its respective decade. Incredibly ahead of its time. Insanely great performances from people like Jack Lemmon and, of course, notably, Marilyn Monroe, who I'd never actually seen in a movie up until this point, despite her kind of ubiquitousness culturally. She's great. This fucking screenplay, though, this is Billy Wilder again, and yeah, this is a movie that is very heavily about gender. It's about two guys who are on the run from the mob, and to escape them, they essentially pose in drag as two women who are part of like an all-women's kind of like a singing or like band troupe. And it is hilarious to this day. It doesn't even have many moments where you're like, oh, that didn't age well. Like, it's just really, really smart. Ends on maybe one of the single funniest jokes in all of cinema, frankly. It's very difficult to put into words, like, what makes this kind of stand out amongst other comedies, but it's just, it has such a tight grasp on what it is saying about its actual gender politics that it never really puts a foot wrong. Like, it's really easy to just make a movie like this and have it age poorly, and as a result, it's not even funny anymore. Couldn't be further from the truth here. It's also just an impeccably well-made and well-paced movie, but honestly, it's the performances that you're coming for here. After that, this is a much weirder movie to recommend. Technically, you can watch it for free on YouTube because this film is banned. This is a film by filmmaker Todd Haynes, who I need to see more shit from, but this is the best thing I've seen from him so far. This is Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story. Massive trigger warning for this. If you have experience, or if, like, eating disorder stuff messes with you, you might want to take it easy on this one. This is the real life story of Karen Carpenter, one half of The Carpenters, one of the most ubiquitous musical acts of their era. And Karen Carpenter, notably, I believe died at either 32 or 33, very, very young, of anorexia. The circumstances surrounding her death are so unbelievably upsetting that, like, making a genuine biopic out of this would be incredibly fucking difficult to do in good taste. Which is why Todd Haynes made this movie entirely with Barbies. And there is something legitimately kind of ghoulish about this. I can't in good conscience say it's not completely in good taste, but there is something poignant about it. There's a degree of separation that you get watching, you know, dolls enact this drama, because, you know, you still are forced to sympathize with something that is, perception-wise, inhuman. But it doesn't matter that it's inhuman. You still feel bad for it. But that's how the characters in this story, Karen's family specifically, saw her. It was banned mainly because her brother, you know, obviously found it offensive and did not care for the way that the family was portrayed, despite the fact that most accounts indicate that it is a fair representation of how the family treated her, which is to say, very, very poorly. Very upsetting movie, honestly, but like as a cultural artifact, it's fascinating. Like as a document of history. I actually rewatched the Pablo Larraín movie Spencer recently, and I would say that this movie is really in a dialogue with like that and Jackie, the other Pablo Larraín movie about Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Real life female figures who are put under this weight of fame and cultural ubiquity and suffer immensely because of it. And as a result, there is kind of a pseudo-horror vibe to these things. Superstar is definitely the most upsetting of the three films, but I would also say it is the most poignant. If you don't walk away from this thinking that media in general, or just press or fame, is like ontologically an evil concept, you should probably watch it again. To steer very firmly away from the unpleasantness, the next movie on this list is Vanilla Sky. If you don't know anything about this movie, don't read anything about it. Don't look up what the plot is. If you enjoy good psychological thrillers, specifically ones from like the late 90s, early 2000s, give this a go. This is not a movie I would say is like as technically great as everything that surrounds it on this list, but its idiosyncrasies appeal to me specifically so strongly. It's such a fascinating film. Like, there are shades of things like Vertigo in this, but it's like, it's so oddly like novelistic. Even saying what it's about kind of gives the game away, but is a Tom Cruise kind of thriller that is very interior and psychological. It's about a man who develops a relationship with a woman in his life played by Penelope Cruz, where this relationship begins to kind of take over his life, and he gets in an accident, and subsequently his life starts to change after this accident. And that's all I'm gonna say. This movie has, I think, like 2 or 3 separate Radiohead needle drops. If nothing else, Cameron Crowe can put together a fucking playlist. That much I can assure you. But there's just an uncanny, surreal thing that this movie has to it that is so magnetic, so visually interesting, and so genuinely effective. I have never seen a movie that it quite captures this level of batshittery. But like, it's contained enough to feel conventional. It is a bizarre film that is not for everyone, but I feel like the few people it is for, you will fuck with this so heavy. Like, I have not really stopped thinking about this movie. It's very Philip K. Dick in a way, and you probably won't get what I mean until the movie is over, but like, I highly recommend this interesting kind of memory hold movie that I've never really heard anyone talk about it. I just remember Zach, friend of the show, constantly saying that like how much he liked the movie when he was younger, and how he's like, yeah, I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything, but like, it appeals to me specifically, and I completely understand what he means because I feel the exact same way. Next on the list is another movie that Zach recommended to me very strongly that I knew I had to pursue, and that is Ang Lee's film Lust Caution. Ever since I went and watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I was like, oh, Ang Lee's fucking legit. Because the only exposure I had to Ang Lee for the longest time is the fact that he did not the Incredible Hulk. He just did his version of Hulk, which is not good. And I knew he did Brokeback Mountain, and I knew that that was an award-winning film, but I was like, oh, you know, maybe he's just a guy who with some hits and some misses. And, like, yeah, broadly, but this dude has some real underappreciated heaters. This being one of them, mainly because it's a little bit too spicy for American audiences. I think this might have been hit with like a unrated or X or something, just because the nudity in this is pretty hot and heavy. But this is a spy thriller that stars Tony Leung, notably a star of Wong Kar-wai film In the Mood for Love, and Tang Wei. Tang Wei being in one of my favorite films ever and one of the best films of the decade, Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave. And she is so fucking good in that movie. And she's better here. There is a lot about the kind of situation of occupied Hong Kong in this that's very political. Like, I would actually recommend reading up on the subject before watching this, just so you know a little bit more about what's going on, because I was very unfamiliar with it. But, man, this movie's a ride. It's on the longer side, but in terms of just, like, really awesome, Hitchcockian, perverse, very sexy thrillers, you can't do much better than this. The actual technical acumen of this movie is so fucking good. And man, this is a bleak fucking movie. Like, get ready to have your heart ripped in half, bare minimum. But like, this is a quite upsetting film, but it's riveting. Like, you really see the development of Tang Wei's character as kind of a young political revolutionary who's just kind of a little bit in over her head, and then eventually evolves into an actual spy, and then has to sort of play this mind game with Tony Leung. And it's amazing. It is so fucking hot. I don't need to say much more than that. After that, we have the mystery film Clue. Yes, like the board game. This is kinda like Knives Out, but if it was made in the 80s. Notably, this movie is kind of famous for the fact that it has 3 canonical endings, and they show you all of the endings. At least the version I did watch on streaming shows you all of the different endings, and like, when this played in theaters, it would have a different ending depending on where it played, which is just so fucking, like, fascinating as a concept. But like, as a comedy screenplay, they just don't make this shit like they used to. Like, Chuck from Better Call Saul is in this. This cast of people is so, like, colorful and fun. The dialogue is whip smart. Like, the filmmaking, too, is also deceptively kind of great. This is a really fun movie to, like, watch with someone, like a date night or something. Like, if you just have, like, you know, want to cozy up and watch a good little mystery that's also going to make you laugh. Again, very Knives Out in nature. Not quite as, like, doesn't have the emotional core that movie has, but every bit as riveting, if you ask me. Next is a film that I kind of skipped because a lot of people I know were a little bit more middling on it, but this is just a testament to the fact that you should always see if a film is good for yourself. And that being Wes Anderson's movie, The French Dispatch. I think I've just come to the point in my life where I have to accept that I really fucking love Wes Anderson. It took me a long time just because I had only seen The Royal Tenenbaums for the longest time, and then eventually I got around to Grand Budapest and Fantastic Mr. Fox, etc., etc. And I've really vibed with all the movies I've seen. And Moonrise Kingdom, I think is all right, but it's The Royal Tenenbaums to me that is just like the apex of him for me right now. French Dispatch, though, is a close fucking second. This is a movie that is about people who love writing, about journalism, about language and politics. And I know that sounds kind of broad and high-minded, and it's really not. It's a series of kind of vignettes of smaller stories that are sort of all feeding into this idea of the death of a kind of newspaper, like, mogul head. And it's all of these different stories that are, you know, come from the people who work for him. And the way it all ties together is, again, surprisingly quite emotional, and I'm just so impressed with the filmmaking here. It is some real everything in the kitchen sink, like, frenzied. He is throwing everything at the wall. Like, there's animated bits, there's stop motion bits, all of the live action shit is so fucking snappy. I'm kind of floored by it. Like, Grand Budapest was what I would consider, like, his best made movie up until this. Like, it is just so impressive and so unexpectedly moving, and I think the cast just knocks it out of the park. Just great time. Next is Probably the most difficult movie to recommend on this list so far, but this is a film from 2017. This is Hanagatami by Nobuhiko Obayashi. Nobuhiko Obayashi is mostly known as the guy who made House. House is a Japanese horror movie that everybody knows as being fucking weird. And yes, it is weird. But it is a real shame that, like, that movie is so fucking famous, and it's just kind of known for being weird. And you kind of miss the fact that the filmmaking in it is fucking incredible. There's some interesting political subtext to that movie, and this dude has a long, incredibly storied career of incredibly imaginative, really strange movies that are incredible. And this is one of them. I actually just watched this, when I'm recording this, I watched this last night, and this is 3 hours of some of the strangest elliptical storytelling I have ever seen. On a moment-to-moment basis, this movie looks very artificial, can sometimes look kind of amateurish in its compositing and green screen, but it lends the film a kind of uncanny surreality that is so perfect for this tone. Like, it feels like an animated movie in live action, but, like, not derogatory. This is such a colorful movie. It's a movie with a very elevated tone. It's kind of campy to some extent, but it is also so sincere. It is basically the story of this group of friends in this town growing up kind of in the shadow of encroaching war, and there's lots of post-war anxiety in this movie. There is lots of just, you know, the horror of, you know, eventually being enlisted in the military and stuff, and just general politics and stuff, but it never gets in the way of the fact that this is a really character-driven movie where everyone has these really specific identifiable problems and arcs, and they all intersect in interesting ways. And these characters, you don't really... It takes a while to get on this movie's rhythm. But the way these people start interacting with each other and their specific philosophies and how they sort of go on living about their life and, like, rationalizing how war is affecting them and just, you know, the general kind of vibe of youthful exuberance. Like, this is also kind of a hangout movie where you're just kind of watching these people sort of go through school and hanging out and having these, like, adolescent anxieties and stuff, but, like, the characters are younger and the actors are a little older, and it also kind of adds to the surreality of everything. And the visual style of this is just unlike anything I've ever seen. It feels like a feature-length music video. It's almost 3 hours. I cannot assure you that you will really even enjoy this, but I can guarantee you will never see anything like it. And the theme that I've noticed with his movies so far, the ones that I've seen, is that even if you're a little bit lost in some of the mechanics of the movie, this dude knows how to bring together a fucking ending. Like, the final 20 minutes of this actually kind of got me choked up. Like, I was really feeling it. I got on this wavelength, and I was like, I just watched it less than fucking 7-8 hours ago, and I already want to rewatch it again. It's long, so I'll have to wait a little while, but, like, I really want to be able to get my hands on any Obayashi that I can, because some of his stuff is getting more wide releases now. I highly recommend it if you're just into weird shit. Like, if you are the type of person that enjoys weird, offbeat shit that not all your friends are into, give this a shot and really fucking, like, maybe read up on it. Maybe read up what some people interpret with this film, just because it is so dense. I likened it to something like Sion Sono's Love Exposure, another one of my favorite movies ever. It is so maximalist. It's fucking crazy. It's a wild ride, but it is a wild ride with such specific intent, and it's so both naively optimistic and also so painfully sad. but it's again, but the whole movie doesn't have the vibe of sadness until the kind of 11th hour. I really did love this though. Like, I would say that this is the first movie on here that I would say is legitimately masterpiece territory. Another movie that I have been kicking myself for not having seen because it's an old classic, but it is one of those essential screenwriter movies, is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, the Mike Nichols movie from 1966. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton in this movie are on fucking fire. Like, this is borderline a film staged play that is a prolonged argument that this old couple is having, and this younger couple was invited by them to sort of come and have dinner with them. And as the night progresses, as the alcohol gets flowing, some revelations start happening, and it is just people fighting. Almost. The way this is filmed is really something else. But it is the screenplay and performances that you are here for and that you stay for. Like, Taylor in particular, I feel like could come across as kind of two-dimensional or just kind of like a shrieking, character, but they lend her such interiority. You spend the first kind of half of this movie, or at least I did, of being like, ah, man, I really like both of these, actors. They're really putting, their whole pussy into this. But I'm really leaning more towards sympathizing with Burton's character. He's inherently a bit more of a likable presence. And then when the layers get peeled back, you're just like, oh, you're both kind of terrible. And then the movie just kind of keeps folding in on itself, adding new layers of context to their relationship, to their dynamic. And the end of this movie legitimately had me shook. Like, it recontextualizes almost everything you've seen in a really subtle way, and you're just like, oh wow. You feel like you are watching a couple fight, and you feel like you need to leave the room. It's legitimately like, if you're a child of divorce, this is probably going to hit like nothing else. I have seen people argue in the way that Burton and Taylor argue in this, and it is magnetic to watch. I highly recommend this to basically anybody, specifically people who are just really into dramas. Another movie that's on the newer side that took me a while to get to, but I'm so glad I did, is Justine Triet's film Anatomy of a Fall. One of the best films of the decade that I have seen so far. This is a 2.5 long sort of procedural mystery whodunit, but it's not really a whodunit, it's did she do it? It is a court case that is about whether or not a woman pushed her husband off of the roof, or is responsible for his death, rather. And the filmmaking here is excellent, but wow, that performance work is just fucking exceptional. The way this peels back the mystery and stuff, I think that maybe I might have had an even stronger reaction to something like Witness for the Prosecution if I hadn't seen this, because this is the pinnacle of the genre, frankly. Everything about this is riveting. This is one of the best child performances that has happened since, legit Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense. Some incredible shit. Great contributions from a dog. Go into this knowing as little as possible. Truly. Still, though, it's not even a movie necessarily you can spoil, but you want those reveals and the gradual trickle of information. You want it to be on the movie's terms. And I really can't compliment this enough. On every level, it is exceptional. And also has an interesting song choice in it that you will see if you see it. Highly recommend seeking this out. This was a big awards contender when it came out. Easy to fucking see why. Great stuff. Go in knowing nothing. I am trying to relent on as many details as possible just because this is something that it's just best experience going in blind. Next on my list is, I was having a real bad week and I was like, hey, my friends, recommend me something that will make me feel good, that will make me happy. Give me a comedy or something. And shout out another friend of the channel, shouting out Cole, recommended me Peter Bogdanovich's film What's Up, Doc? This is one of the funniest comedies I have ever seen. I didn't know anything about this movie, but if you didn't glean from the title, basically this movie is about what if Barbra Streisand was Bugs Bunny, and what if Ryan O'Neal was Daffy Duck. and it's in live action. But it retains the bouncy, frenetic pacing of a classic Looney Tunes cartoon in a way. And it's absurd. It's really, really fucking funny. Like, I was in stitches throughout basically all of this. And, like, it's so consistently clever. The gags are incredible. I'd never seen Barbra Streisand in a movie before, and I didn't really know if she was, like, if she was good or if she was just a famous singer. Like, you know what I mean? She's great. She essentially plays a fucking chaos demon in this movie trying to ruin Ryan O'Neal's life, who also gives a fantastic straight man performance in this. Just the best. This shit is riotously entertaining. I had a great time with it. It is one of the most inventive, I think, comedies I think I've ever seen. It is, like, legitimately, it is up there with some of my favorite movies of the 70s. In a stark departure, I have another Ang Lee movie here, and man, if that dude didn't make the monument to perfection that is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, this would definitely be my favorite of his. But as such, it'll have to settle for silver medal. Still a masterpiece. That is Ang Lee's The Wedding Banquet. This also got a remake this year. I actually coincidentally watched it the same week it came out, despite not knowing that it was gonna come out, which circumstances, I guess. But The Wedding Banquet here is, oh man, this movie fucked me up. Like, it's a very funny movie. It's mostly a comedy, but it is also a really insightful drama that is about cultural barriers. It is about a man from Taiwan who comes to America, who is a gay man, who falls in love and, like, has a boyfriend, lives in an apartment with him, and his parents come over to put him in an arranged marriage because they do not know about his sexuality. And so essentially they have to fake the entirety of what's going on, and he's like, hey, this woman I know, can you fake being my wife if I give you a visa, basically? Like, I'll help you out, and, like, financially, like, I will help provide for you. We'll just have to, you know, fake this little affair for as long as my parents are going to stay. And it sounds like a very kind of like, oh, this is going to be a comedy. And yeah, it's really funny. You will be laughing throughout a good portion of this film. And then the kind of drama of the movie starts to seep in, like, once the actual wedding banquet itself becomes more central. And it is, like, an impeccably made movie. But wow, this takes some turns I really did not expect. This hit me on a really, really personal level, as someone who has marriage in their near future, as someone who has a lot of very messy feelings about their own sexuality and reckoning with it, and the kind of culture clash of it all, and, you know, being closeted, and, like, it hits a lot of notes that made me look inward in a way that I do not with most movies. Like, this got me in a way that only my favorite, like, dramas do. And at this point, I would say that I consider this, like, among them, just because the characters are vivid, the drama is great, the resolution to everything is fucking perfect. It is a very essential cultural document that has aged phenomenally well. There are some really dark moments in this, some stuff that will make you seriously uncomfy. I firmly believe that is the intent of the film, though, and I was along for this ride, and I was in my feelings a bit. This one really got me. And next, speaking of things that really got me, is that I kind of mentioned earlier that I've wanted to love found footage more than I always have. Then there is this movie where I was like, I have finally found my Blair Witch Project. And that is Skinamarink. You've probably heard about this movie, like a lot of, you know, online circles kind of talk about it. It's really divisive. Very easy to see why. I can see literally anybody watching this and being like, that was ungodly boring, or that was stupid, I laughed at it. It was one of the most viscerally terrifying experiences of my life. Rhiannon and I watched this in this room in the dead of night with no lights on, door closed, under blankets, as instructed. You have to watch it that way, by the way, if you do watch it. Wait until the middle of the night, all lights off, no windows, just like complete darkness. This movie scared the shit out of me. It is basically a feature-length version of those segments of the Paranormal Activity movies where it's the camera, you know, the horror segments, and it's just that. And it's also kind of got like a House of Leaves situation going on where it's like it's about these kids that are in this house and suddenly the doors and windows vanish and like things start moving around and like the toilet fucking disappears and there's some malevolent entity in the house with them. It is very slow. Very little actually happens in it. And it is so reliant on how it employs film grain to obscure the frames and the shadows of this. But it's designed in a way that tricks your eye really geniusly. Like, you always think that there's something on the edge of the frame, or that there's something on, like, it's very contemporary in its sensibilities, I find. Like, I think I'm kind of just the right age to be scared by something like this, just because internet horror, like, growing up, like, new media horror, felt so much like this. And this is, like, the only thing to make me scared in the way that I felt scared when I was a kid. And that's no small feat. This is easily the most divisive thing on this list. If it doesn't sound like your deal, probably isn't. But for those who are a little bit more adventurous, there is something primal in this movie. This movie's evil. Like, I'm convinced this movie has a malevolent presence inside it. And I really fuck heavy with it. Like, a lot. It's one of the best horror movies I've seen in a good long while. Next, as we round out near the top of this list, is the second movie from Obayashi that I have seen, which recently got a Blu-ray release, which prompted me getting into his films. But this is His Motorbike, Her Island, 1986. And I don't know a whole lot about Obayashi, considering how many films he's made, and I don't want to consider myself some kind of expert after only seeing 3 of his movies. But this is probably a really good entry point because it has a lot of the things that are very endemic of his style and his character as a filmmaker, but it's a lot easier of a pill to swallow than something like House or Hanagatami. This is a very straightforward kind of lax romance, and it's very simple, but the visual style of it is very in keeping with Obayashi's other stuff, so it's a gorgeous movie. Like, there's so much nighttime cinematography in this that is lit by neon interiors of, like, restaurants and, like, just, like, homes, and it creates this really cozy atmosphere. But, like, there is something kind of adventurous and optimistic about it, too. Like, it's such a sincere movie that, like, again, it really comes together in those final 20 minutes where it's like you're with these characters the whole time and you're not totally sure where the movie is going, but it ends up being a really fascinating movie that's about recognizing the fact that you will inevitably lose things in life that you love and care about, and you have to be brave enough to keep caring about and loving them anyway, even though you know you're gonna lose them. And it has a resolution that, like, I won't even dare spoil what the end of this movie is and, like, what it does. There's something really subversive about it, in a way that's very similar to The Apartment, now that I think about it, which is, again, another one of my favorite romances. It is such a lived-in feeling world with really well-realized characters and acting, and it's a little bit more grounded than his other stuff. And this movie's just so enchanting. The vibes are immaculate, and the way everything resolves, I walked away from this movie being like, my heart feels fuller. Like, I feel like a more enriched person for having seen this movie. Again, I can't quite say it's for everybody. It is a very specific tonal wavelength you have to get on, but, like, you know, give this a shot, you know, like, go buy that Blu-ray and, you know, support the release of his films. I have a feeling that he's got a hell of a lot of shit in the vault that does not have an HD release yet that really could use it. Next is a movie I have talked about on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray, so I won't talk about it much more here, but it is Le Chambre Rouge, a French-Canadian film, Red Rooms. If I had to sell it, this is the most disturbing film I have ever seen. I'd like to think that that means something at this point in my life, where I have seen many disturbing films, but this is very contemporary in what it talks about. And with the whole subject matter of online chat rooms and, you know, the dark web, it could be really hokey. It could be really, like, ick and just, like, out of touch. And instead it ends up being maybe one of the most prescient movies about online subcultures and how it can turn people into monsters. And legit, I had to stop this movie several times because I was like, I am too upset to process all of this right now. I'm gonna fucking walk around my apartment a little bit and then sit back down when I feel better. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not a movie that will show you anything particularly graphic, but it is all about implication. In fact, the closest it gets is you hear something very graphic in this. And that scene alone, this film is incredible. I think it's, like, I don't want to say an important movie, but it's, like, a very relevant, very, like, eye-opening film if you're not super aware of all of this stuff already. But, like, I don't ever want to watch this again. It is deeply unpleasant and serves as a kind of terrifying mirror to the underbelly of a lot of scary modern shit. And pass. Something that's a little bit easier to talk about and far more my speed is I finally got around to watching the entirety of the oeuvre of some of my favorite filmmakers, the Wachowski sisters. Notably, the architects behind the Matrix series of films, several other films that have kind of developed a cult status. Speed Racer is also one of my favorite movies, one of the most visually remarkable blockbusters ever made. I am also one of the ardent defenders of The Matrix Resurrections. We have a video about that from a couple of years ago that still attracts shitty comments of assholes to this very day. I will delete your comments. I do not give a fuck. If you are going to be transphobic on this channel, no you aren't. Get fucked and die. I did not expect to finally return to the Wachowskis' debut feature, Bound, and walk away with it thinking, I think that's their best movie. And I do. This movie is basically a sapphic BDSM Rear Window, and it's such my shit. This movie is shot by Bill Pope, who shoots most of the Wachowski sisters stuff, but he is one of the great modern cinematographers. He also did a lot of work with Edgar Wright, for instance. If you want a motivated fucking camera, this is the dude you go to. And this movie is shot immaculately. Just because this is a debut feature and it's made on a bit of a budget and has kind of a contained location, it does not mean the filmmaking is any less polished. This is such a tight, mechanical little movie, but it also has breathing room, has incredible central performances from, like, the main core trio of the film. Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilly are kind of the main sort of pair here, who have unbelievable chemistry with each other and are just so unbelievably sexy in this. It is genuinely distracting. Like, good God, to anyone who ever doubted that the Wachowskis were incredibly homosexual women, I cite this movie as evidence. Joey Pants, Joe Pantoliano, is also in this movie. And he is also terrific. A thriller that is basically, it's also kind of similar to the Coen Brothers debut feature, now that I think about it, Blood Simple. But there is such a polish to this, and again, such a remarkable aesthetic vision that it is just, this is one of those movies where I was like, halfway through, I was like, this is gonna be Jake Cannon. Like, this, I love everything about the way this movie looks, the way the fucking sound design works. I love the score. It's also the same guy who did the Matrix score, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. What the fuck is that dude's name? It's going to drive me crazy. It's Don Davis. Don Davis? Don Davis. That's it. And yeah, it's a simple movie. If you enjoyed something like Love Lies Bleeding recently, this was the template. This is one of the pinnacles of just like erotic cinema, in my opinion. This is like up there with Basic Instinct, another one of my favorite movies. And yeah, simple. I'm not sure everybody's going to dig it in the exact way that I do, but I just admired the interlocking perfection and chemistry and aura that this movie has. Okay, top 4. The cream of the crop. Cannot believe that this movie is only the 4th best thing that I've seen, but this is truly like these, like the I would say bound, like these top 5 in general here. These are future favorites of mine, and truly one of the best films I have ever seen. Spike Lee's Malcolm X. I got the criterion of this because amongst my mutuals on Letterboxd, this might be the highest rated film collectively from like the most amount of people. And I've been hearing great things about Malcolm X for years, and I've been wanting to watch more Spike Lee just because he's a filmmaker I'm really interested in. He's made some of my favorite movies that exist already. Do the Right Thing, impeccable, 25th Hour, masterpiece. Love both of those films. I'm not sure if I like Malcolm X more than Do the Right Thing. I very well might. But of those 3 movies, I think it is the best. This film is going to be remembered as one of the great American epics. Denzel Washington in this movie as Malcolm X is a performance worthy of several Academy Awards that this film did not win. Criminal. Absolutely criminal, considering Al fucking Pacino won it for Scent of a Woman that year. Get fucked, Academy. Jesus. I can't even be mad, because this movie is so goddamn good. Like, if you don't know a lot about Malcolm X in general, this is basically a 101 course on him. Like, I would recommend maybe reading up a little bit on him. But I learned a lot about this movie, being that this is actually something that the late James Baldwin had given notes on before he passed, which is fucking crazy and makes a whole lot of sense because the movie just, I'm not really qualified to explain the full extent of why this movie is great, but the way it is able to communicate its racial politics, and I mean in ways that are not immediately like, when I say racial politics, I mean like, what's the word I'm looking for here? The way its intersectional politics work. This movie touches on things like colorism. It touches on, well, I mean, it doesn't touch on, it is basically detailing the rise of the Black nationalist movement and the Black Panthers and, you know, like, stuff that you do not get taught about in schools. For a reason, and that reason is racism. Conversation for another day. I'm sure that there are plenty of people more qualified to speak on why this is great, but here's the appeal of this movie. This is basically a Martin Scorsese style kind of Goodfellas thing about debatably the most important civil rights leader in our country's history. Not trying to put anyone on a pedestal or denigrate anyone else in that field, like, obviously, but Malcolm X is a character is a person who I feel like the American education system, because of his radical politics, willfully suppresses a lot of knowledge that we're given on about him. And then when you learn about him, and most of this movie is, like, not embellished, like, its tone is a bit heightened, but from what I can tell, historically speaking, it's fairly fucking on point. is that, like, if you learn more about this guy, it's enough to radicalize you. Point blank period. But, like, the acting in this is so fucking good across the board. The pace of this 3.5-hour movie, I wanted more. I legitimately wanted another hour of this. Spike Lee's direction is so musical. It's so vivid. It's so colorful. Like, the fact that biopics have a bad name these days is criminal, because you have people like Scorsese or Lee who have been making movies like this and have set up the blueprint, and everybody has just failed to fucking live up to what precedent was set. This should be seen in a similar standing because it is just as good as movies like Goodfellas, movies like The Godfather. In fact, I think the movie that I compared it to when I wrote about it was The Irishman. Similar tone, similar length, similar Titanic American figure that's heavily mythologized, but there is a humanity here that, like, just, there's so many kind of amendments to X's kind of growing philosophy as the film goes on. It's just like, you really see how he develops his identity and how his identity develops his, you know, his coda, his philosophy, his, you know, the thing that he ends up preaching. And it becomes like just sort of a snake eating its own tail at some point, until the inevitable collapse where something bad happens. This is just flatly one of the best movies I have ever seen. I can't really do it justice. Top 3. Another debut feature. I really like those scrappy debut features. This one is from filmmaker Steven Soderbergh, who has made a couple movies this year, both of which are very, very good. I've only seen one, but I still need to see Black Bag. But I finally watched Sex, Lies, and Videotape by Steven Soderbergh, and this is one of the most fascinating psychosexual texts I have ever seen. It is basically a feature-length kind of take on the observer effect, which is the sort of principle of the mere act of observing a problem or hypothesis playing out. That observation is enough to change the outcome of what is being observed. And that sounds kind of lofty and high-minded, but this movie is so Hitchcockian and strange. It's about a woman having an affair, basically. Well, no, it's about a man having an affair, and then the woman sort of uncovering the infidelity, and then also encountering a man who films people who talk about sex, because he himself cannot have sex, so he gets off by listening to people talk about it. And this is a very strange setup for admittedly a very strange movie, but again, if the psychology aspect of this sounds intriguing, it is fascinating. James Spader in this delivers a performance that is absolutely fantastic and also just unfathomably fucking creepy. Like, he plays it so normal, but he is so overtly fucked up and strange that it's the dissonance that becomes the disturbing part of it. And I just think this movie has some really fascinating angles to it, some really interesting things to say about sexual politics, and just the tension of it all is surprisingly high. Like, this is a gripping movie. And, you know, it's not very long. It's like only a little bit north of 90 minutes, but it is one of those kind of erotic thrillers, but it's nothing about it is super erotic or super thrilling, but that measured quality about it makes it fascinating. I'm being vague intentionally because you kind of have to see what I mean to become interested in what this film is, but it is truly one of the most interesting debut features I think I've seen from a filmmaker. Number 2 is something I'm very briefly going to touch on because I'll be blunt, I want to talk about this in video form elsewhere. But the second best movie I've seen this year is Hal Hartley's Trust. I think the best way I can just sort of relay my thoughts on this is that this film is one of the bigger roles for playwright, screenwriter, and actress Adrienne Shelly. Adrienne Shelly was a very, very talented, very promising kind of up-and-coming star, sort of multi-talented, incredible, and had a bright future ahead of her. Co-starred and wrote and directed the film Waitress, which is probably my favorite rom-com ever, and she was tragically murdered in, I believe, a home invasion. And I am of the belief that this is one of the greatest kind of losses to the greater artistic and cinematic world, being that Shelley was taken far, 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 far too soon. She was an incredible talent, and in this film, Trust, she gives one of my absolute favorite performances ever put to screen. I was absolutely captivated by all of this film, which is a very offbeat kind of dark comedy that is so odd tonally. It is such a strange movie, but it really, really deeply affected me. Her in this movie, she plays a teenage girl who basically tells her parents that she is pregnant, and this revelation ends up accidentally killing her father. And the movie balances comedy and drama so deftly. It's kind of an absurdist comedy, but it's also really grounded. It's a movie of contradictions, and I'll delve into those more one day. But I'll just say this. This movie is maybe the best underseen film I think I've ever seen. I think that this has potential to be a bona fide cult classic. It doesn't really feel like it's even reached that level of stature yet, just because I don't think enough people have seen it. But I would really recommend this film to anyone with a passing interest in cinema. That's all I have to say. And number one, I also don't have much to say about, because we all know what it is. It's I Saw the TV Glow. I have an entire video about this with, again, friend of the channel, Luke, where we dissected this movie, what it means to us, and I will never be able to do the film any kind of justice, especially in an abridged format here, so I will just go tell you to watch that video. I'm pretty proud of that little discussion. We got in the weeds. This is the way that I'll put what I feel about I Saw the TV Glow, is that when I was in high school, I went to, there was this place where if you qualified, had good enough grades, basically you took your English and science course at a separate school alongside a either engineering, law and justice, health sciences, or media arts specialized course. And I went into the media arts course, which is what put me on the fast track to my passion for film, my passion for, all of the stuff that I'm doing right now, this video that I'm making here. And we learned, I was already in love with movies, but we did things like, I remember one of the first movies we studied in that class was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. My teacher was fucking awesome, what can I say? But this sent me down a rabbit hole of trying to watch a bunch of acclaimed movies. I remember tearing through a bunch of the IMDb Top 250 when I was a sophomore, and I eventually got to this one movie that I stood awake until midnight to watch, under the cover of my blanket, on my laptop, this little movie called Donnie Darko. At 15, I didn't fully understand Donnie Darko. I was trying to wrap my head around the finer mechanics of its plot. And yet, despite not being able to understand it, that movie's ending hit, and I was a, whimpering, sobbing mess. It reduced me to tears. I had never felt something cinematically that strong in my life. It legitimately did changed the way I thought about and interacted with art and interfaced with it. Mainly, there was one scene in it that captivated me because it's not really an important scene. It's a scene that's really, in the overall context of the film, it's flavor text. It's the movie theater scene, which is like my favorite scene in a film. And it's just because the mise-en-scène, the atmosphere of it is so impeccable, so palpable, and I can't pinpoint why to this day. And that inability is why I love it. It is a moment in that film that is purely ephemeral. It just feels like emotions are being shot out of the screen directly into my brain, and I completely understand them even though I've never felt them before. And I've always been like, I want to find a movie that gives me this feeling again. I Saw the TV Glow is that feeling, but it's a whole movie. It is the best film of the 2020s to me. It means a lot. Go check out what we have to say about it. But now I have cleared through all 50 of these. Jesus H. Christ. I hope that editing this down makes this a little bit shorter, but wow. Thanks for taking this journey with me. I hope that you walk away with at least a couple of recommendations, perhaps. And if you have any, please let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you want to fight with me about some of these movies, do that too. I mean, that's what discussion is for, but, you know, cheers. And hey, if this does well, maybe I'll do it again. Hopefully it won't be 2 hours long.